Well, you almost have to. It depends on where they are on like a scale, if you like. If they're like, let's say it's a family man or family woman, and then they are married with two children and they've got quite a lot of debts. It's a tricky one to do anything that will like, alter what they are doing in terms of like money coming in. So a lot of people struggle to take a leap, and especially if they're a bit older. Let's say they're approaching that sort of like 45, 50, and they think, well, in 10 years I'm going to be retired. I don't really want to change anything. I'm averagely busy. I've got money coming in, so it's a tricky one. And the thing is, people, if they want to change, you can guide them, but they almost have to have an idea, but they in their brain, but they have to do that, and it's not easy, because people are creatures of habit. They work for an institution, and no offense, but a lot of people will get institutionalized, like being in the military. I was in the military 12 years, but if I was full time, they look after you, but everything is done for you. You know what I mean? So and you get a set wage and do this. So it's a tricky one. It's almost trying to say, well, it depends what you want. It depends what your goals are. And a lot of people, they have a sort of a goal, but they don't really have an achievable goal. They talk about A, B, C, and D, and E, but the A, B, C, and D never really comes to fruition. They never, they talk about writing a book, they talk about going on a holiday there, they talk about buying a new car, they talk about paying off a mortgage, but most people don't really achieve that. They almost like coexist. There's not many people like SJ out there, who's doing your fifth degree, got three children, you know what I mean, and then got three clinics or four clinics or 10 clinics. All right, you were just busy, 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 busy. So there's no one really. And then, if someone says to you to get something done, you would just get it done. But no offense to the majority of people, they are not really self-motivated, because there's a question like, oh, why do I want to be when I'm sort of happy as I am, and sometimes they're a bit blinkered. They can't see, they can't see what's over that hedge. They can't see what's round that corner. Not everybody opens a door to allow you to come in. I'm not saying, like, it's like once people say, why don't you, I don't know, gamble on this, or why don't you bet on this? And I'm like, well, Thomas, I don't want to win anything. I don't want to be given anything in my life. I want to know that when I sadly pass away, that everything I've achieved, I've done it on my own. I've come from humble backgrounds. I had an outside toilet, and my mum had no money. So when I bought my first car, my first house, I did it all myself. But on a sort of negative in some ways, my daughter, when she gets to an age, the thing is, she's probably going to be given a lot of stuff, because I'm quite a giving person, like my girlfriend and things. So you know what I mean. So I like to help, but sometimes you almost help too much, and then it's unachievable because they just think, I just want to be given more things. So you almost have to have tough times, to realize that there's a lot out there that you can achieve.